Hello, and welcome to TerraNash. I'm Aiden, your narrator for tonight. Let's take this time together to step away from the rush of the day and ease into a world of dreams and wonder. Tonight, I'll tell you a story of ancient legacies and hidden powers, where descendants of legendary warriors must awaken the dragon spirit to protect their heritage. It's a tale of adventure, sacrifice, and discovering one's true destiny. But before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? And what time is it as you settle in to hear this story? We'd also love to know what kinds of stories you'd enjoy next. Your thoughts and suggestions inspire us, so please share them in the comments below. If you'd like even more from us, you can check out our Patreon for early access to all our stories and a curated Spotify playlist as well. Oh, and I wanted to share an important update with you. Currently, less than 10% of our viewers are subscribed to the channel, which means more than 90% of you haven't subscribed yet. If you've been enjoying our bedtime stories, subscribing is a simple and free way to support us. Reaching 1,000 subscribers will allow us to remove all mid-roll ads, ensuring a completely uninterrupted and relaxing experience for you. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can make TerraNash an even more peaceful place for storytelling. Now, as you begin to settle in, take a deep breath, in and out. Let your shoulders relax and feel the weight of the day slip away as you prepare to drift into the story. Let the calm of this moment wrap around you and allow your mind to wander with us as we begin our tale. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable, and imagine the distant lands where the dragon spirit sleeps, waiting to be awakened by the ones destined to protect it. Feel the quiet energy in the air, the sense of something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface, just as your own journey is about to begin. Chapter 1. The Unseen Air. Kato had never felt more out of place. The air was thick with the scent of incense and age-old wood, mingling with the faint taste of salt that drifted in from the nearby ocean. He sat in a dusty corner of the old Xiaolin temple, the only sounds the distant echo of monks chanting and the rustling of ancient scrolls. Kato had been called here, though he didn't understand why. The dreams, the strange sensations, the whispers in the back of his mind, they had all led him to this moment, a moment he was still unsure he was prepared for. In the stillness, Master Z's voice broke through the fog of uncertainty. "The path you're on is no accident, Kato," the elderly monk said, his eyes sharp despite his age. "You are a descendant of the Xiaolin warriors. This temple, these teachings, they are your birthright." Kato's heart skipped, his mind raced. "My birthright?" he echoed, incredulous. The weight of the statement hung heavy in the air, but Kato wasn't ready to accept it. He was an ordinary teenager, a boy from a small town who had never known anything about ancient martial arts or mystical legacies. "Yes," Master Z continued, his voice unwavering. "For generations, your family has guarded the legacy of the dragon spirit, a power so ancient and profound that it has shaped the very world you know." The monk's gaze softened, a knowing smile tugging at the corners of his lips. And now, the time has come for you to awaken it. Kato's mind spun with questions, but before he could ask another one, Master Ji gestured to a small wooden chest at the center of the room. The first key to unlocking the dragon spirit lies within that chest. It is your inheritance, Kato. But it is not an inheritance of wealth or power. It is something much more. Your true potential, your destiny. You must claim it. He stood slowly, as though the weight of the moment had just hit him, and walked toward the chest. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a simple, worn medallion, an intricate design of a dragon coiled around a glowing gemstone. It pulsed with an energy Kato could feel deep within his bones, as though it was calling to him, waiting for him to pick it up. The moment his fingers brushed the surface of the medallion, a vision flashed before his eyes. An ancient city, crumbling walls of stone, and a great dragon soaring across the sky. The roar of the beast echoed in his ears, and a sudden flood of emotions surged through him. Fear, exhilaration, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. But just as quickly, the vision faded, leaving Kato breathless and disoriented. He glanced up at Master Z, who was watching him intently. "You've felt it, haven't you?" the monk asked, his voice calm but knowing. "The bond between you and the dragon spirit has been awakened. You are no longer just a boy from a small town. You are a warrior, destined to carry on the legacy of the Xiaolin." Kato's breath caught in his throat. His mind whirled with thoughts he couldn't fully grasp. He was destined for something bigger, something ancient and powerful. The weight of this realization felt impossible to bear, yet at the same time, something deep inside him stirred with a sense of purpose. He wasn't sure what it all meant, but the medallion, still warm in his hand, seemed to whisper that his journey had already begun. "You are not alone, Kato," Master Ji added, as if reading his thoughts. "There are others, descendants like you, who will help you unlock the full power of the dragon spirit. They are scattered across the world, unaware of their own connections to this legacy. You will find them, and together, you will awaken the dragon spirit to protect your heritage and the balance of the world." The words resonated deeply within Kato. He was part of something much larger than himself, a hidden world of warriors and ancient spirits. He had no idea what awaited him, but one thing was clear. This was his fate. But as Master Z spoke of the others, a nagging doubt crept into Kato's mind. If others were destined to help him, who exactly were they? And why had they all been kept in the dark for so long? His eyes flickered to the door of the temple, as if hoping for some sign, some direction to guide him forward. Master Z seemed to understand the unspoken question. "You will meet them soon," he said. "But for now, rest. Tomorrow, your journey begins." Kato's fingers closed around the medallion as he turned to leave the temple room. His heart beat faster with each step, the uncertainty still swirling in his mind. But now there was something else, something deeper, a pull, as though fate had already chosen its path for him. And with that thought, he realized that he was no longer just an ordinary teenager. He was the heir to an ancient legacy, and his adventure had only just begun. The quiet temple walls seemed to hum with the energy of the past, the whispers of long-forgotten warriors, and the promise of what lay ahead. Tomorrow, Kato would discover his true purpose, and he would not be facing it alone. Chapter 2: The Awakening. Kato's dreams that night were anything but peaceful. Every time he closed his eyes, he was drawn into the same vision. A great city, golden and ancient, bathed in the twilight glow of a setting sun. He could see the towering spires of temples, each one adorned with intricate carvings of dragons and mythical creatures. The ground beneath his feet vibrated with a deep, rhythmic hum, as if the very earth was alive, pulsing with energy. He walked through the streets, the sounds of chanting and the distant roar of the ocean filling the air. Suddenly, a figure appeared before him, cloaked in shadows, their face obscured by a hood. The figure moved gracefully, yet with an eerie purpose, their eyes glowing faintly with the same energy he had felt in the medallion. The figure extended their hand toward him, beckoning him forward. "Your journey begins now," the figure whispered, their voice soft but firm, like a command. Kato stepped forward, but before he could reach them, the ground trembled violently, sending him stumbling back. A great roar split the air, and a shadow passed overhead. Looking up, Kato saw a massive dragon, its scales shimmering like molten metal, its wings stretching across the sky. The beast's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Kato felt as if it could see straight into his soul. "You are the heir," the dragon's voice rumbled, its tone ancient and heavy. "But you are not yet ready. Find the others. Together, you will awaken the dragon's spirit." The vision shattered into fragments, and Kato woke with a start, gasping for air. His heart pounded in his chest, and his skin was slick with sweat. He sat up, his eyes darting around the dimly lit room. The temple's stone walls stood silent, unmoving, but the weight of the dream still pressed heavily on him. For a long while, he simply sat there, trying to piece together the fragments of his vision. The dragon's words echoed in his mind. Find the others. Who were they? And what did the dragon spirit truly mean? Kato rose and made his way outside, where the early morning sun bathed the temple in a soft golden light. The world felt different now. There was a hum of energy in the air, a feeling that something great was stirring, waiting to be unleashed. He could almost hear it in the breeze, see it in the fluttering leaves, feel it in the warmth of the sun on his skin. As he stood at the edge of the temple grounds, staring out into the vast, open landscape, Kato knew one thing for certain. He couldn't face this journey alone. The other heirs, the ones the dragon had spoken of, were out there, scattered across the world. But where? And how would he find them? His thoughts were interrupted by the soft footsteps of Master Z approaching. The old monk's presence was as calming as the dawn itself. Kato turned to face him, and without a word, Master G handed him a small scroll sealed with the Xiaolin insignia. Inside that scroll are the first clues to finding the others, Master G said. The path is not easy, Kato. There are many dangers ahead, but the dragon spirit will guide you if you are open to its power. Kato accepted the scroll, his hands trembling slightly as he broke the seal. He unrolled it slowly, revealing a map of the world, ancient symbols scattered across the continents. A large X was marked over a distant island, a place Kato didn't recognize. He glanced up at Master Z, a question in his eyes. "The island you see on the map," Master Z explained, "is where your journey will begin. It is there that you will find the first of the heirs. But you must be cautious. There are those who seek the power of the dragon spirit for themselves, and they will stop at nothing to prevent you from awakening it." Kato frowned. "Who are these people? And why do they want to stop us?" Master Z's expression darkened. "They are the Order of the Black Flame, an ancient cult that seeks to control the dragon spirit's power. They will stop at nothing to ensure that the dragon spirit remains dormant, for they know its power is far too great to be wielded by anyone who does not have pure intentions. You must protect the dragon spirit at all costs." Kato nodded, the weight of the responsibility settling in. He had never imagined his life could be this complicated, this dangerous. But the fire that burned in his chest, the same fire he had felt when he first touched the medallion, was growing stronger. It was the same fire that had driven the ancient Xiaolin warriors, and it was calling him now, urging him to rise to the challenge. "Rest tonight," Master Z said. "Tomorrow, you will leave for the island. The first step of your journey is about to begin." As Master Z turned to leave, Kato stood silently for a moment, the weight of his mission pressing heavily on him. He glanced once more at the map, his eyes narrowing on the island. A new sense of purpose filled him. He was no longer just an ordinary boy. He was an heir of the Xiaolin warriors, destined to awaken the dragon spirit and defend the world from those who would use its power for evil. Tomorrow, his journey would begin in earnest, and he knew, deep in his heart, that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, both external and internal. But Kato was ready. He had no choice but to be. The dragon spirit was calling, and he would answer. Chapter 3. The Island of Shadows. The early morning mist clung to the earth as Kato stepped onto the small boat that would carry him across the sea. The air smelled fresh, a mix of salt water and damp earth. But beneath it lingered a sense of tension. The map that Master Z had given him, now tucked safely in his tunic, was a constant reminder of what lay ahead. The island marked with an X, a place of mystery and potential danger. He had no idea what he would find once he arrived, but there was no turning back now. As the boat gently rocked on the waves, Kato sat at the bow, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The island was still a distant speck, but he could feel it calling to him, a pull in the pit of his stomach that only grew stronger as they drew closer. His thoughts returned to the dream he had that night, the image of the dragon soaring across the sky. It was as if the dragon's spirit was guiding him, urging him forward. But even as the pull of destiny tugged at him, a gnawing fear settled in his chest. What if he wasn't ready? What if he failed? The boat's captain, an older man with a weathered face, noticed his restless energy "First time sailing, boy?" he asked, his voice rough but kind. Kato nodded, though he was sure it wasn't just the sea that had him uneasy. "I'm not sure what I'll find when we get there." The captain chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "The sea has a way of showing people what they need, even if they don't know it yet. Whatever it is you're after, you'll find it, whether you're ready or not. That's the way of the world." Kato didn't reply, but the captain's words lingered in his mind. Was this island just a destination? Or was it part of a much larger journey, one that would change him in ways he couldn't yet understand? Hours passed as the boat sailed through the mist-covered waters, and as the island finally came into view, Kato's breath caught in his throat. The island was unlike anything he had ever seen. Jagged cliffs rose out of the water, their dark stone faces littered with patches of lush greenery. At the peak of the highest cliff stood a lone tower, its silhouette sharp against the fading light of the afternoon. A soft breeze stirred the leaves of the trees, but otherwise, the island felt eerily quiet, as though the land itself was holding its breath. The boat docked at a small cove, and Kato stepped onto the shore, his boots sinking slightly into the soft sand. He glanced back at the captain, who was already turning the boat around, ready to return. "Will you be coming back for me?" Kato asked, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The captain nodded grimly. "I'll be back in 3 days, boy. If you're not back by then, I won't wait. Make sure you're ready." With that, the boat pulled away, and Kato was left standing alone on the shore, the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks the only sound breaking the silence. He turned his gaze toward the island, steeling himself for what was to come. The first steps onto the island felt heavy. Every footfall seemed to echo in the stillness, and Kato couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. He glanced around, but saw nothing except the dense trees and shadows stretching long across the sand. It was as if the island itself were alive, its presence so strong it almost felt like it had a will of its own. Kato walked forward, following a narrow path that wound its way through the thick forest. As he ventured deeper into the island, the air grew cooler, the trees thicker, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers reaching toward the sky. He could hear the distant sounds of wildlife, but they were muted, as if they too were cautious of the land they inhabited. After what felt like hours, Kato came to a clearing, and at its center stood a stone structure, half ruined, yet still standing with quiet dignity. It resembled an ancient temple, its stone walls overgrown with vines and moss, but there was something off about it. The air around the temple hummed with a strange energy, and Kato could feel it in his chest, a subtle vibration that made his heart beat faster. The medallion at his side seemed to stir, pulsing faintly in response. He took a cautious step forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. His instincts told him to be careful, but the pull of the dragon spirit was undeniable. He had to go inside. As he approached the entrance, the massive stone doors loomed above him, intricately carved with ancient symbols that seemed to shift and move in the dim light. The markings were unfamiliar, but some of them felt strangely familiar, as if they were part of a language he should know but didn't. Kato reached out and touched the door, and as his fingers made contact, a sharp crack echoed through the air. The doors groaned, shifting slowly on their hinges, as if awakening from a long slumber. A chill ran down Kato's spine, but he stepped forward, pushing the doors open with all his strength. They creaked and protested, but they yielded. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of age. The interior of the temple was dark, lit only by the faint glow of moss growing along the walls. As Kato's eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw that the temple was filled with statues, dragons, warriors, and other mythical creatures carved from stone. At the far end of the temple stood a large altar, and upon it lay a large, intricately designed stone slab. The slab was covered in strange, glowing runes that pulsed with an ancient energy, similar to what he had felt from the medallion. Kato approached the altar, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the presence of something powerful here, something older than anything he had ever known. He placed the medallion on the stone slab, and the moment it touched the surface, a wave of energy surged through him, almost knocking him off his feet. His vision blurred, and he gasped as he felt the power of the dragon spirit flood his senses. It was overwhelming, both terrifying and exhilarating. And then, from the shadows at the back of the temple, a figure stepped forward, cloaked in black. Kato's heart skipped a beat. The figure's face was hidden beneath a dark hood, but the feeling of danger was palpable. "You should not have come here," the figure said, their voice low and cold, sending a shiver down Kato's spine. Before Kato could respond, the ground trembled beneath him. The air thickened with a dark, oppressive energy, and the statues around him seemed to come to life, their stone eyes glowing with an eerie light. The Order of the Black Flame had found him. Kato's hand instinctively reached for the blade at his side, but as he did, a dark tendril of shadow shot from the stone altar, wrapping around his wrist. The figure stepped forward, their eyes gleaming with malice. "You are too late, heir of the Xiaolin," the figure sneered. "The dragon spirit belongs to us now." And with that, the battle for the fate of the dragon spirit began. Chapter 4. The Order of the Black Flame. The temple's walls groaned, the stone trembling as the energy in the room shifted violently. Kato's heart raced, his hand still locked onto the hilt of his blade, but the shadowy tendril wrapped tighter around his wrist, cold and unyielding. His pulse hammered in his ears, drowning out the sound of his breath, as the figure in black stepped closer, their movements slow but deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. "You're too weak, Kato," the cloaked figure sneered, their voice a low whisper that seemed to resonate from deep within the stone walls. "The dragon spirit is not meant for someone like you. You're not worthy of its power." The figure's words were like a slap, but Kato held his ground. He refused to show fear, even as the tendrils of darkness pressed against his skin, trying to drain the warmth from his body. He clenched his fist around the blade's hilt, his knuckles white, but the shadow seemed to grow stronger with each passing second. "You think you can stop me?" the figure asked, a twisted laugh escaping their hooded lips. "The Order of the Black Flame has waited centuries for this moment. The dragon's spirit is ours to control, and you are just an obstacle in our way. Kato's mind raced, the teachings of his ancestors flooding his thoughts. The Xiaolin warriors had always fought with honor, their strength not just in their martial skills, but in their connection to the spirit world. If he was going to survive this, he needed to tap into that ancient power, the very essence of the dragon spirit. But how? How could he awaken it when he had no idea what to do or how to control it? A flicker of movement caught his eye, a glimmer of gold beneath the figure's cloak. The medallion, the very medallion that had led him here. It was still tied to his belt, faintly pulsing with an inner light, as if it was waiting for him to make a move. The cloaked figure stepped closer, their hand reaching toward him, and Kato instinctively stepped back. The air crackled with dark energy, a force that pushed against him as if trying to force him to submit. His body trembled, but he refused to give in. Instead, he closed his eyes, centering his mind, calling upon the teachings he had learned from Master Z. The medallion. The moment his mind latched onto the image of the medallion, a surge of warmth rushed through his veins. The tendrils of shadow recoiled, and Kato's body was flooded with energy. Raw, primal energy that pulsed with the heartbeat of the earth itself. His senses sharpened, and the dark figure before him seemed to slow, its movements becoming less fluid, more sluggish. Kato felt the power of the dragon spirit awaken within him, a deep and ancient force connecting him to something far greater than himself. He thrust his free hand forward, reaching for the energy that now swirled around him. The medallion's glow intensified, and the tendrils of darkness that had ensnared his wrist snapped like brittle threads. The figure stumbled back, a hiss escaping from beneath their hood as the light from Kato's body grew brighter, stronger. For the first time, Kato could feel the true might of the dragon spirit coursing through him. But it wasn't just about the power, it was about control. "You don't know what you're messing with," Kato said, his voice steady, though his heart still raced. He didn't know where the words came from, but they felt right. The dragon spirit is not a weapon to be wielded by those with dark hearts. The figure snarled, their hands snapping out toward him, summoning another tendril of shadow to strike him down. But Kato was ready. He raised his hand, and the light from the medallion flared. A barrier of pure energy formed in front of him, repelling the darkness. The force sent the figure tumbling backward, crashing into one of the stone statues with a loud crack. For a brief moment, the room fell silent, the tension hanging thick in the air. Kato stood, breathing heavily, his eyes locked onto the cloaked figure as they struggled to regain their footing. The dragon spirit's power still surged within him, wild and untamed, but now he could sense the danger in it. It wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility, a burden he wasn't yet ready to carry. But there was no turning back. "You think you've won?" the figure hissed, pushing themselves up from the ground. Their eyes glowed with a furious light, filled with contempt. "The Order of the Black Flame will stop at nothing to take what's ours. You may have this moment, but you cannot protect the dragon spirit forever." Kato's breath caught in his throat. He knew that the battle was far from over. This was just the beginning. The figure wasn't done. Far from it. The power of the black flame was too great to be crushed in a single blow. He had only delayed their plan, not stopped it. "I'll stop you," Kato said, his voice unwavering. The words came from deep within him, fueled by the newfound strength of the dragon spirit. "I won't let you take what doesn't belong to you." The figure sneered, but there was something in their eyes, a flicker of doubt, maybe even fear. They knew that this boy, this descendant of the Xiaolin warriors, was more than they had expected. But that didn't mean they would give up. They would fight until the very end. The figure turned, retreating into the shadows, their form dissolving into the darkness of the temple. "This is not over, Kato. You've only just begun to understand the power you're dealing with. We will see you again." With that, the figure vanished, leaving Kato standing alone in the temple, his heart still racing. The walls seemed to close in around him, the air thick with the remnants of the dark energy that had filled the room only moments ago. Kato clenched his fists, the light from the medallion flickering dimly as the energy slowly began to fade. But he couldn't let his guard down. The Order of the Black Flame had shown their hand, and he knew they would stop at nothing to claim the dragon's spirit for themselves. His journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And now, with the dragon spirit's power coursing through him, Kato had to find the others, the other heirs of the Xiaolin warriors. Together, they were the only hope to protect the world from the darkness that threatened to engulf it. He could feel it in his bones. The dragon's call was growing stronger. Chapter 5: The Lost Heir. The temple stood silent as Kato's heart pounded in his chest. His breath came in ragged gasps, and the glow of the medallion had faded, leaving only a faint ember of warmth in his palm. The weight of what had just transpired pressed heavily on him, but there was no time to process. The danger was still out there, and he knew it would not be long before the Order of the Black Flame returned for their prize. Kato stepped away from the altar, glancing around the vast hall one last time. The statues of dragons and warriors seemed to watch him, their stone eyes glimmering faintly in the dim light. He shuddered, unwilling to stay another moment in the temple. He needed answers, but first, he needed to find the others, the other heirs who shared the bloodline of the ancient Xiaolin warriors. Master Z's words echoed in his mind. "You are not alone in this fight. There are others. Seek them out, Kato. Only together can you unlock the true power of the dragon's spirit." Kato wasn't entirely sure how he was going to find them, but he knew the journey had only just begun. The first step was to leave this place. He had no intention of staying to test the Order's patience. As he turned to leave, the path that had once seemed clear now felt uncertain. The island stretched out before him like a labyrinth, full of unknowns. He had no idea where to begin or where to go. The sun was beginning to set as Kato made his way out of the temple and toward the shore. The boat was nowhere in sight, and the captain had told him he wouldn't be back for 3 days. Kato's mind raced, trying to calculate his next move. He was alone on this island, with no allies, no map to guide him except the one in his mind. But then, just as despair began to settle in, A faint rustling in the trees caught his attention. He stopped in his tracks, instinctively reaching for his blade. A figure stepped from the shadows, a tall silhouette against the fading light. At first, Kato thought it was a trick of the shadows, but as the figure stepped closer, he recognized them. It was a woman, draped in a cloak of midnight blue, with long, dark hair that seemed to shimmer with the light of the setting sun. Her eyes gleamed with a knowing intensity, as though she had been waiting for him. "You're Kato," she said, her voice calm, yet commanding. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Kato raised an eyebrow, his hand still on the hilt of his blade, but there was no threat in her stance. "And you are?" he asked cautiously. The woman's lips curved into a small smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I am Kaya," she said, stepping closer. "I've been looking for you." Kato's heart skipped a beat. "You've been looking for me? How do you know who I am?" Kaya's expression softened. Her eyes filled with something that resembled pity. "You have the medallion, the mark of the Xiaolin warriors. You are the one who has awakened the dragon spirit." Kato's eyes widened. "So, you know about the dragon spirit?" Kaya nodded. "I do. I know much more than you think, Kato. And it's time you knew the truth." Before Kato could respond, she gestured for him to follow her. Reluctantly, he complied, still wary, but intrigued. They walked in silence, the air around them thick with the sound of crickets and the soft rustling of the trees. The dense foliage eventually gave way to a small clearing, where a campfire crackled in the center, the flames dancing in the evening breeze. Sitting around the fire were two others, one man and one woman, both of them looking just as weary and battle-hardened as Kaya. The man was tall, with broad shoulders and a scar running down the side of his face, while the woman was shorter, her hair cropped short in a practical style, her eyes sharp and calculating. They both stood as Kaya approached, nodding in acknowledgement of Kato. "Kato, meet Lian and Mira," Kaya introduced, her tone serious. "Lian is the last of the true warriors of the East, and Mira is our strategist. Together, we've been searching for you." Kato's eyes flicked between the three of them, his mind struggling to make sense of it all. He was used to being alone, trained in the ancient ways of the Xiaolin. But this was something new. These people weren't just travelers. They were heirs, like him. "You knew I was coming?" Kato asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the weight of the question might crumble the air itself. "You knew I was the one who had awakened the dragon's spirit?" Lian, the scarred man, spoke first. His voice was rough, but his eyes were full of understanding. "We knew," he said simply. "We've been watching, waiting for the bloodline of the Xiaolin warriors to stir once more. You are the one who must carry the legacy, Kato." Mira added, her eyes intense. "The Order of the Black Flame has been hunting for you. We've seen the signs. We know what they're capable of. And now, we're here to help you. You can't do this alone." Kato felt a surge of relief, a weight lifting from his shoulders. These were the allies he had been seeking, and they were here, ready to stand beside him. But something still nagged at him, something deep within that told him this wasn't the whole story. If we're all heirs, Kato asked, then why haven't we met before? Why has it taken so long for us to find each other? Kaya's expression grew somber. Because the time was never right, she said softly. The dragon spirit has only just begun to awaken, and we needed to be sure that you were ready. The others... She hesitated, glancing at Lian and Mira before continuing. We've been through battles of our own, tests we couldn't speak of, and now the fate of the world rests in our hands. Kato swallowed, trying to process what they were saying. They were all connected by blood, by destiny, but there was so much they weren't telling him. Kaya's words echoed in his mind. The time was never right. Was there more to this than just the order of the black flame? He nodded slowly, understanding now that his path was more complicated than he had ever imagined. He had been chosen, but for what? And why had it taken so long for these other heirs to find him? I'm ready, Kato said finally, his voice firm with resolve. What do we do now? Kaya's eyes softened, and she gave a small, approving nod. Now we begin the real journey. The dragon spirit's power is ancient, and it is volatile. You need to learn to control it. You need to understand it, and together we will take the fight to the Order. Kato's heart beat faster as he realized the gravity of the situation. The Order of the Black Flame was no longer just an enemy to defeat. They were a shadow that threatened to consume everything Kato held dear. This journey was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. But now, with Kaya, Lian, and Mira at his side, he was no longer alone. The battle for the dragon spirit had begun, and Kato knew that this was the moment that would shape the future of the Xiaolin warriors and the world. Chapter 6: The Awakening Storm. The crackling of the campfire was the only sound that broke the stillness of the night as Kato, Kaya, Lian, and Mira gathered around, each lost in their thoughts. The flames danced high, casting shifting shadows on their faces. The weight of the task ahead weighed heavily on Kato's mind. But now, he no longer felt alone. He had allies, real allies, people who understood the gravity of what was to come, and they were determined to help him succeed. Kaya leaned forward, the firelight glinting off the silver pendant around her neck. There's something you need to understand, Kato, she began, her voice low and serious. The dragon spirit is not a force to be trifled with. It is more than just power. It is a force of nature, and it chooses its bearer carefully. If it chooses wrongly, the consequences are dire. The last person who attempted to wield the dragon spirit's full power, they were consumed by it. Kato's throat tightened at the mention of the previous bearer. What happened to them? Mira spoke, her tone calm but somber. They tried to use the dragon spirit for personal gain, to change the course of history. The spirit fought back, and in the end, it destroyed them, body, mind, and soul. We can't afford to make that mistake, Kato. If we fail, it's not just our lives on the line, It's the entire world. Kato swallowed hard, the weight of the responsibility settling deeper on his shoulders. He had never imagined that the path ahead would be so fraught with peril, so full of danger not just for him, but for everyone around him. But Kaya's words were clear. This was not a path he could walk lightly. There was too much at stake. Kaya continued, "That's why we've come together, to train you, to help you unlock the true potential of the dragon spirit, and to protect you from its destructive power. But you must be prepared. The Order of the Black Flame knows you're here, and they won't wait long before making their move." Kato's hand instinctively went to the medallion around his neck. The cool metal a reminder of the ancient power it represented. It pulsed faintly, as if alive with a will of its own, and for a moment, Kato felt its energy hum beneath his skin. He wondered if he could ever truly master it. But there was no time to doubt now. The storm that had been gathering was already on the horizon. Lian, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. His voice was low, gruff, but filled with an edge of urgency. "We need to move fast. The Black Flame isn't the only threat we're facing. There's something else. A force in the shadows. They've been gathering for years, and we've only just started to uncover the extent of their influence." Kato frowned. "What do you mean? Who are they?" Mira's eyes darkened, her gaze flicking to Kaya before she answered. "We don't know their name, but we know they've been pulling the strings behind the Black Flame. They've been manipulating events, creating chaos. They are as ancient as the dragon spirit itself, and they will stop at nothing to control it." Kaya nodded. "They are the true enemy, Kato. The Black Flame is just a pawn in their game. We don't know their motives, but they're just as determined to harness the dragon spirit's power as the Order. They will be the ones to bring the world to its knees if we fail." Kato clenched his fists, his mind racing. This was more than just a fight for the dragon spirit. It was a fight for the very balance of the world. He wasn't just carrying the weight of his ancestors' legacy anymore. Now, the fate of the entire world rested on his shoulders. He had to find a way to control the dragon spirit and face the darkness that was coming. But how? "Where do we start?" Kato asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. Kaya stood, her eyes filled with determination. "We start by uncovering the truth. The Order of the Black Flame may know where the dragon's power lies, but we need to find out more. There are ruins, ancient temples, scattered across the world. Some of them were built to protect the dragon spirit. If we can find them, they may hold the key to unlocking its full potential. But we must be quick. The Order is already on the move, and the longer we wait, the harder it will be to reach them." Kato nodded. "Then we'll move at dawn. But we need to be ready for whatever comes next." Lian's lips curled into a half smile. "We've always been ready. The Black Flame doesn't know what's coming for them." The next morning, the group set out before the sun had fully risen. They traveled light, each of them carrying only what was necessary for the journey ahead. The forest stretched out around them like an endless sea of green, the air thick with the scent of moss and damp earth. As they moved through the dense foliage, Kato couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every creaking branch, every rustling leaf felt like a warning. Kaya was the first to speak as they reached the edge of the forest. "We found something," she said, her voice tense. "A lead. There's an ancient temple to the north, far from here. It's said to be the resting place of one of the original guardians of the dragon's spirit." Lian grunted. "How do we know it's not a trap?" Kaya's eyes were sharp, focused. "We don't. But it's the only lead we have, and we have no choice but to take it." Kato felt a chill run through him as the group set off in the direction of the temple. The air around them seemed to grow heavier with each passing step. He couldn't help but feel that the storm was closing in, that something was waiting for them at the temple, something far darker than they could imagine. As they trekked through the wilderness, the landscape slowly began to change. The trees grew taller and more twisted, the sky above them darkening with an unnatural storm cloud. The winds picked up, howling through the forest like a warning. Kato's heart raced as the tension in the air thickened. The dragon spirit seemed to respond to the growing storm, its power shifting within him. And then, as they neared the temple, the first bolt of lightning struck the earth nearby, splitting the sky in two. The storm had arrived. The battle for the dragon spirit had begun. Chapter 7: The Temple of Shadows. The storm was relentless. Thunder cracked overhead, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Kato's senses were heightened, every gust of wind, every drop of rain, making him feel as though something, or someone, was closing in on them. The landscape around them had shifted into a nightmare of jagged rocks and twisted trees, their branches bending unnaturally in the fierce winds. The temple stood before them, an ancient ruin half swallowed by the mountainside, as if it had been waiting for them, hidden away in the shadows of time. The temple's architecture was unlike anything Kato had seen before. The stone was black as obsidian, cracked and weathered by centuries of neglect. The doors, towering and heavy, were covered in intricate carvings of dragons in battle, locked in an eternal struggle against shadows that seemed to writhe and coil around them. Kato's heart pounded in his chest as they approached. This place was ancient, older than anything he had ever encountered, and it reeked of a forgotten power that called to him, a power he was not sure he was ready to face. "We need to be careful," Kaya said, her voice strained against the howl of the wind. "This place is not what it seems. The dragon spirit's power has left traces of its energy here, and they may be volatile." Kato nodded, feeling the weight of the medallion around his neck pulse in response to her words. It was as though the temple itself was resonating with the energy of the dragon spirit, drawing him in like a moth to a flame. He could feel the ancient power thrumming in the air, a force that seemed to both invite him in and warn him to stay away. Lian stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Let's get inside. We don't have time to waste." The heavy doors creaked open with an eerie groan as Kaya pushed them aside, the sound echoing through the temple like a warning. They stepped inside, the temperature dropping several degrees as they crossed the threshold. The air was thick with dust, and the stone floors were slick with rainwater that had seeped through the cracks in the ceiling. As they ventured deeper into the temple, the walls seemed to close in around them, narrowing until the only light they had came from the flickering flames of their torches. "Stay close," Kaya whispered. "We don't know what traps may lie in wait." They moved cautiously, every step echoing in the silence, the only sound their footsteps and the distant rumble of thunder. The temple's interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, each one darker and more foreboding than the last. The walls were covered in carvings of mythical creatures, and strange symbols were etched into the stone. The air was thick with an ancient energy that felt both oppressive and intoxicating, as though the temple itself was alive, watching them. As they reached the heart of the temple, they found themselves standing before an altar, its surface worn and cracked from centuries of neglect. The altar was surrounded by statues of dragons, their eyes empty and their forms covered in a layer of dust. At the center of the altar was a stone basin, filled with what appeared to be a glowing liquid, an iridescent blue that seemed to shimmer and shift like the ocean at night. "This is it," Kaya said softly, her voice filled with awe. "The heart of the temple, the source of the dragon spirit's power." Kato stepped forward, his breath catching in his throat as he gazed at the glowing liquid in the basin. It was beautiful, hypnotic, and yet he could feel the danger emanating from it. This was the power he had been seeking, the power that would give him the strength to face the order of the black flame and the shadowy force pulling their strings. But at what cost? As he reached out to touch the basin, the air around them suddenly crackled with energy. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the flames of their torches flickered wildly. Kato's hand stopped just inches from the basin, the power in the room pressing against him like a physical force. It was as though the very temple itself was alive, testing him. "Don't touch it," Mira's voice rang out, her expression tense. "It's a trap." But before Kato could pull away, the stone beneath his feet cracked open with a deafening roar. The ground split wide, and from the darkness below, a shadowy figure rose, its form massive and formless. It was like a living storm, swirling with darkness and energy. Its eyes glowed with an eerie yellow light, and it let out a deafening roar that shook the very air around them. Kato staggered back, his heart racing. The dragon spirit's power was no longer just a source of strength. It had awakened something far darker, a force of destruction that had been lying dormant for centuries. The creature, a twisted amalgamation of shadow and flame, rose from the depths, its tendrils reaching out toward them. Lian drew his sword, his eyes narrowing in determination. "We can't let it escape," he muttered. "We have to fight it." Kaya stepped forward, her hands glowing with a soft blue light. "No, this is not just any creature. This is a guardian, a test. It's meant to test the one who seeks the dragon spirit's power." Kato's mind raced. A test? Was he supposed to face this creature? Was this what he had been chosen for? He felt the power of the medallion surge again, and he knew, deep down, that the dragon spirit was waiting for him to make a choice. Kaya's voice broke through his thoughts. "Kato, focus. You must unlock the power within you. You have the bloodline, the strength, but you must believe in yourself. You have the power to defeat this creature, but you need to connect with the dragon spirit." The creature lunged, its massive form crashing toward them with a force that would have shattered anything in its path. Kato raised his hand instinctively, feeling the warmth of the medallion growing hotter in his palm. He reached deep within himself, searching for the connection with the dragon spirit. His thoughts, his doubts, everything began to fade away as he focused on the pulsing energy within him. The creature roared, its tendrils stretching toward him. But just as they reached him, Kato shouted, "No!" The power of the dragon spirit surged through him, and a brilliant flash of light erupted from the medallion, engulfing the room in a blinding light. The creature recoiled, its form twisting and shrieking in agony as the light enveloped it. The energy radiating from Kato was pure and untamed, and for a moment he felt as though he had become one with the dragon spirit, his body a vessel for its immense power. With a final, desperate scream, the creature dissolved into smoke, its form vanishing into the air, leaving only a faint trace of its dark energy behind. The room fell silent, the storm outside seeming to dissipate in an instant. Kato stood, panting, his heart still racing, the power of the dragon spirit ebbing away, leaving him drained but victorious. Kaya, Lian, and Mira slowly approached, their expressions a mix of awe and relief. Kaya placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Kato. You've unlocked the dragon spirit's power." Kato stood tall, his body trembling with the aftermath of the battle. He had done it. He had passed the test. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The dragon spirit had shown him its power, but now he had to learn how to control it. And with the order of the black flame and the shadowy forces waiting to strike, the true challenge was just ahead. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Chapter 8: The Shattered Path. The aftermath of the battle left an unsettling silence in its wake. The temple that had once resonated with the ancient power of the dragon spirit now felt empty, as though the very walls were exhaling the weight of the conflict. Kato, though victorious, was drained, his body exhausted, his mind clouded with uncertainty. The energy that had surged within him moments ago was now a distant hum, as if the dragon spirit itself was retreating, waiting to see what he would do next. Kaya, Lian, and Mira were still catching their breath, but there was an unmistakable look of relief in their eyes. They had seen Kato face down the Guardian, a creature born of darkness, and win. But that victory had come at a cost. The temple had been forever altered. Its ancient power had been unleashed, but so too had something else. A deeper, darker force, one that even Kaya and Mira couldn't fully comprehend. "We've done it," Kaya said quietly, her voice carrying a mixture of pride and caution. "But I fear the worst is still to come." Lian didn't speak at first. His sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, the tension in his posture not quite easing. "The temple has been changed. That light, I've never seen anything like it. It felt like we were being watched the entire time." Kato felt it too, something was different now. The dragon spirit's power had been unlocked, but it had left a lingering imprint, one that stretched far beyond the temple's walls. The wind had quieted, the storm outside now a distant rumble, but there was still a feeling of unease in the air. The balance had been shifted, and with it, the fragile peace between the forces seeking to control the dragon spirit seemed more tenuous than ever. "We need to leave," Mira said, her voice laced with urgency. "The black flame will have felt the disturbance. They won't be far behind." Kato nodded. He didn't need any further convincing. His heart was still racing from the fight, but there was no time to dwell on the victory. The real battle had only just begun. The Order of the Black Flame would stop at nothing to control the power of the dragon spirit, and now that Kato had awakened it, the danger had escalated. As they exited the temple, the eerie calm of the night greeted them, but Kato could still feel the weight of the power pulsing within him. The dragon spirit had marked him as its chosen bearer, but he still had no idea how to fully wield its strength. It was as if he had opened a door to a realm he didn't understand, and now that realm was watching him, waiting for him to step through. The journey back to their camp was quiet, the group moving swiftly through the rugged terrain, each step taken in cautious haste. The forest, which had once seemed tranquil, now felt oppressive, as if the trees themselves were closing in on them. Every rustle of leaves, every shift in the wind made Kato's pulse quicken. The further they traveled, the more the sense of being hunted grew. As they reached the outskirts of the forest, Lian spoke again, his voice low and grim. "We're not alone." Kato turned toward him, his gaze narrowing. "What do you mean?" Lian's eyes flicked to the shadows around them. "I can feel it. There's someone following us. They're not the black flame. These are different, more subtle." Kaya raised her hand to halt the group, her face serious. "Stay alert. We may have attracted more than just the attention of the Order." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the trees. It was cloaked in dark robes, the hood obscuring most of its features. The figure moved with a grace that made Kato's skin prickle, and the air around them seemed to grow colder as the figure drew closer. The group instinctively drew their weapons, the tension crackling like a storm ready to break. The figure raised a hand in a gesture of peace. "You've awakened the dragon's spirit," a voice spoke, smooth and unsettling. "But you have done so without understanding the consequences. The balance is broken, and now you must face the price." Kato's heart raced. The voice was not one he recognized, but there was something about it that felt ancient, as if it belonged to a time long forgotten. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm despite the unease tightening in his chest. The figure lowered its hood, revealing a face that was at once familiar and strange. The person before them was older than Kato expected, their face etched with lines of experience and wisdom. But there was something unnerving in their eyes, an emptiness that made Kato instinctively take a step back. "I am the Keeper," the figure said, "a guardian of the balance between the dragon spirit and the world. I was once a protector of this temple, But now, I am its last remnant. Keeper, Cato echoed, confusion lacing his voice. You mean to say you're part of the ancient order? The keeper nodded slowly. I am, and I have watched the line of warriors who have come before you, each one seeking the dragon spirit's power, but none have understood the true weight of it. And now you, Cato, have unleashed forces that are beyond your control. What do you want from us? Kaya asked, her tone sharp, her weapon still drawn. She wasn't about to trust this figure easily. I want nothing but to warn you, the keeper replied, their voice soft but laden with urgency. You may have awakened the dragon spirit, but you have also stirred something far more dangerous, something that has lain dormant for centuries. You are not the only ones who seek its power. The true enemy has always been there, hidden in the shadows. The Order of the Black Flame is only a fragment of the threat you face. Cato's mind reeled. A new threat? Something worse than the Order? He couldn't fathom it. He had already barely managed to survive the creature in the temple, and now this mysterious figure was telling him that the greatest danger was still out there, waiting. What do we need to do? Cato asked, his voice tight with frustration and fear. He wasn't sure if he was ready for another challenge, but there was no turning back now. The keeper's eyes darkened. You must go to the City of Ashes. It is the only place where you can learn how to control the dragon spirit and prevent the darkness from consuming you. But you must hurry. The true enemy will stop at nothing to reclaim the power you now hold. Without another word, the keeper turned and disappeared into the shadows, vanishing as swiftly as they had appeared. The group stood in silence for a long moment, the gravity of the keeper's warning settling in like a stone in Cato's chest. The path ahead was becoming more treacherous, and the stakes had just been raised. The black flame was only one part of a much larger puzzle, and if they were going to survive, they had to find the answers before it was too late. The storm in Cato's heart hadn't passed. If anything, it had grown fiercer, and he knew that his journey was far from over. He was no longer just a descendant of the Xiaolin warriors. He was now the bearer of the dragon spirit, and with that power came a responsibility he could never have imagined. The path was shattered, the future uncertain, but Cato had no choice but to follow it, into the heart of the unknown. Chapter 9. The City of Ashes. The journey to the City of Ashes was not one they could take lightly. The keeper had warned them. Time was not on their side. With each passing hour, Cato could feel the weight of their mission growing heavier, and the consequences of their actions pressing in on him like the walls of an ancient tomb. The dragon spirit's power had been unlocked, but in doing so, Cato had unwittingly disturbed something far greater, something that was now searching for him. The path to the City of Ashes was as treacherous as the stormy night that had preceded it. The terrain was harsh, an unforgiving wasteland of cracked earth and crumbling ruins. They traversed mountains that stretched high above them, the air thin and biting, with only the occasional glimmer of moonlight to guide their way. The forest they had passed through seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by the stark emptiness of the journey ahead. Cato's thoughts drifted often, pulled toward the medallion that now rested heavily against his chest. It had become a constant companion, a reminder of the bond he shared with the dragon spirit. There were times when he felt its presence surge within him, a quiet hum that resonated in his bones. But it was not enough. Kato knew he had to learn how to harness its power fully, or he would never survive what was to come. "This place," Kaya murmured one evening as they made camp under the shadow of a jagged mountain ridge. "It feels like the end of the world." Leon's gaze never left the horizon. His eyes were sharp, scanning for any signs of danger. "The City of Ashes is a forgotten place," he said, his voice low. "No one goes there unless they have no other choice. It's a city lost to time, a place where the old powers were sealed away. What they say about it, it's not a place for the faint-hearted." "We don't have a choice," Kato replied, his voice tinged with determination. "We're not just going there to learn how to control the dragon's spirit. We're going to stop whatever darkness the Keeper warned us about." Kaya nodded, her expression serious. "The City of Ashes holds the answers, but it also holds danger. The spirits of those who died there, the ones who tried and failed to harness the dragon spirit's power, may still linger, and they won't take kindly to strangers." As the fire crackled between them, the weight of their journey settled over the group like a cloak. They had no choice but to continue. Every step forward was a step closer to the answers they sought, but also a step deeper into a mystery that threatened to consume them. The next morning, they continued their trek, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. They had not encountered any signs of the black flame, but Kato knew that would not last. The Order would eventually catch up to them, and when they did, the consequences would be dire. They reached the outskirts of the City of Ashes by mid-afternoon. The city was a silent ruin, its structures crumbling into dust, as if time had not been kind. What was once a thriving metropolis now lay in ruins, the remnants of its grandeur reduced to empty husks of stone and ash. There was no life here, no birds, no animals, not even the sound of wind. Only the remnants of a forgotten past remained. As they entered the city's broken gates, the atmosphere grew heavier. Kato felt a coldness in the air, the silence oppressive, as if the very ground beneath them was mourning the loss of what had once been. The streets were lined with shattered statues of mythical creatures, their faces weathered by time. There were no signs of recent activity, no footprints in the ash, no signs of life. It was as if the city had been abandoned for centuries. "This is where the dragon's spirit was first bound," Kaya said, her voice barely a whisper. "The power here is old. If we're going to find the answers we need, we'll have to face the tests of this place. The City of Ashes doesn't give up its secrets easily." Kato's heart raced. He could feel the weight of the medallion pulsing in time with his heartbeat. The dragon spirit was close, its energy flowing around him like a river. But it was different here, darker. The city seemed to draw the power inward, as though trying to consume it. They moved deeper into the city, passing through what appeared to be the remains of an ancient temple. The stone walls were etched with symbols that Kato could not understand, but they felt familiar, like echoes of the past reverberating through his mind. As they approached the heart of the temple, the air grew colder still, and Kato could hear faint whispers in the wind. They were voices, distant, almost imperceptible. But there was no mistaking their tone. They were warnings, the last remnants of those who had once sought the dragon spirit's power. "This is it," Kaya said, her voice tight with apprehension. "The heart of the city." At the center of the temple stood a pedestal, and atop it was a stone orb, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. It was surrounded by a circle of ancient inscriptions, runes that seemed to shift and change when Kato's gaze fell upon them. "The Orb of Binding," Mira said, her voice filled with awe. "It said that whoever controls the orb can either seal the dragon spirit away or release its full power. But there's a price for it. No one who's ever tried to control it has come back the same." Kato stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The orb seemed to call to him, its energy thrumming in the air like a pulse in his veins. He could feel the dragon spirit reacting to it, as though the two forces were destined to meet here, in this forgotten place. "Do you feel that?" Kato whispered, turning to the others. They nodded, all of them sensing the same thing. The power in the air was thick, suffocating, and there was no turning back now. Kato stepped closer to the pedestal, his fingers brushing the cool stone surface. The moment his skin touched the orb, a burst of energy shot through him, the force of it nearly knocking him off his feet. Visions flashed before his eyes, images of ancient warriors, of battles fought in the name of the dragon's spirit, of cities rising and falling in the blink of an eye. And in the midst of it all, he saw something darker, a shadow creeping over the land, growing ever closer. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, but the knowledge it left behind was undeniable. The dragon's spirit was not just a source of power. It was a key to something far more dangerous. And now, the balance was slipping, threatening to break. "We need to make a choice," Kaya said, her voice a mixture of awe and fear. "We can take the orb, but it may cost us everything. Or we can leave it here and risk losing the dragon spirit forever." Kato's heart weighed heavy with the decision. He could feel the dragon spirit within him, calling out, urging him forward. But was he ready to wield its full power? Was anyone? As he stood there, the silence of the city of ashes pressing in on him, Kato knew one thing for certain. Whatever choice he made, it would change everything. And with the shadow of the black flame closing in, there was no time to waste. The path ahead was shattered and uncertain, but Kato knew that he had to face it head on, whatever the cost. The final test was upon him, and the dragon spirit was waiting. Chapter 10: The Dragon's Awakening. The air in the City of Ashes was thick with anticipation as Kato stood before the orb of binding, his fingers still lingering on the stone's surface. The moment he touched it, an ancient power surged through him, wild, untamed, and filled with both promise and danger. His heart pounded in his chest, and the hum of the dragon spirit within him grew louder, as though it were calling out to the orb, calling out to something far beyond the ruins of this forsaken city. Kaya, Leon, and Mira stood in tense silence behind him, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. The shadows of the city long untouched by life, seemed to stir in response to the orb's energy. A low, guttural sound began to reverberate from deep within the earth, almost like a growl, as if the very ground was waking up from a long slumber. "What's happening?" Leon asked, his voice edged with both fear and curiosity. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the stone pillars of the temple groaned as if the city itself was beginning to shift. Kato felt a rush of power surge through him, flooding his veins, but with it came a deep, gnawing fear. This was more than he had bargained for. He had unlocked the dragon spirit, yes, but the force he was now dealing with was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "Kato," Kaya whispered urgently, "pull away. You don't know what you're tampering with." But Kato couldn't. His body was frozen, as if bound by invisible chains. The orb pulsed with a steady rhythm, and the dragon spirit within him seemed to rise in response, as though it recognized its counterpart in the orb. In that moment, everything around him became a blur. Time itself seemed to stretch and twist. His senses sharpened to an almost unbearable degree. The wind, the distant sound of crashing waves, the scent of ancient dust in the air, and then voices. A chorus of whispers, soft at first, but growing louder with each passing second. They spoke in a language Kato couldn't understand, yet it felt eerily familiar. His eyes widened as fragments of memory, visions of past lives, of ancient warriors, of battles fought long ago, flooded his mind. And then he saw her. A woman, cloaked in golden light, standing amidst the ruins of an ancient battlefield. Her eyes burned with the intensity of the dragon spirit, and she looked directly at him, as though seeing him for the first time. "You are the one," the voice echoed in Kato's mind. "The one who will awaken the dragon, the one who will restore balance or destroy it." Kato's breath hitched. The voice was both a command and a plea, and he could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. The woman's image began to blur, replaced by the flashing images of destruction and rebirth, the rise and fall of empires, the deaths of countless warriors, and the loss of countless lives. In the center of it all, the dragon spirit burned brightly, a flame that could either save or consume everything. The orb in his hands pulsed once more, and Kato's vision snapped back to reality. He stumbled back, gasping for air, the weight of the vision still lingering in his chest. "You've seen it," Mira said quietly, her voice full of understanding. "The dragon's legacy, the power that is yours to wield. But there's more to it, isn't there?" Kato nodded slowly, still trying to steady his breath. "I saw the past, and I heard her voice. She told me that I could either restore balance or destroy everything." "Then you have a choice to make," Leon said gravely. "You have the power of the dragon spirit inside you, but you must decide how you use it. If you give in to its temptations, its hunger for more, it could consume you, just as it did to those who sought it before you." The silence that followed was deafening, each of them lost in their thoughts. Kato's fingers trembled around the orb, the weight of their responsibility heavier than ever. The city around them seemed to press in closer, as though waiting for his next move. Suddenly, the ground shook again, more violently this time. A deep rumble came from the depths of the city, and the air grew colder. The whispers intensified, almost turning into screams. Kato's heart raced, and in the distance, a dark shape began to take form, a figure emerging from the shadows of the ruins. "Stay back!" Kato shouted, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. "Whatever this is, I'm not ready. I don't know how to control it." The figure stepped forward, its silhouette taking shape against the dim light. It was tall, cloaked in black, with eyes glowing a fiery red. The air around it crackled with dark energy. Kato's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the figure, the leader of the Black Flame, the very enemy they had been running from all this time. "I see you've awakened the dragon spirit," the figure's voice boomed, rich with malice. "You are the one they call the Chosen Bearer. How fitting. But you are mistaken if you think you can control the power of the dragon. It belongs to me." Kato's mind raced. The Black Flame had found them. He could feel the weight of the dragon spirit's power swirling within him, but it was chaotic, unfocused. He could not control it like the others had. Not yet. And the figure in front of him seemed to know that, to feed off that uncertainty. "You'll never control the dragon's spirit," Kato said, his voice filled with conviction, though his legs felt like they would give way beneath him. "You'll never use it for your own dark purposes." The Black Flame leader's laughter filled the air, unsettling in its coldness. "You think you have a choice? The dragon spirit's power was never meant for mortals like you. It will either consume you or bend you to its will. I will be the one to wield it." Kato's hand tightened around the orb, his fingers now almost white with the pressure. The air hummed with energy, and he could feel the dragon spirit within him, restless, yearning to be freed. But Kato knew he could not let it fall into the wrong hands. He had to find a way to use the power, control it, before it was too late. In a desperate move, Kato threw the orb into the air, his body screaming in protest as the energy inside him surged violently. The orb hung suspended in midair, glowing brighter than ever. The Black Flame leader's eyes widened with shock and fury. "No!" the leader screamed, raising a hand as if to reach for the orb, but it was too late. The orb exploded with a blinding flash of light, and the entire city seemed to quake with the force of it. The ground cracked open, sending a shockwave through the ruins. Kato felt his body fall to the ground as the light from the explosion filled his vision. The last thing he saw before everything went dark was the dragon spirit, its true form, a colossal, luminous figure rising from the ashes of the city, roaring with power. When Kato awoke, the world was quiet once more. The city of ashes had crumbled, the ruins now nothing but smouldering remnants of a forgotten past. He was no longer alone. The dragon spirit stood before him, its presence overwhelming, its energy pulsing through him like a heartbeat. "You have chosen," the dragon's voice resonated within his mind, calm yet powerful. You have awakened me, and now we are one. The balance has been restored. Kato looked around, seeing the destruction they had caused. But he knew one thing with certainty. The battle had only just begun. The black flame was not defeated, and the legacy of the dragon spirit had only just begun to unfold. As the dragon spirit's power filled him, Kato understood the truth of the ancient prophecy. He was not just the bearer of the dragon's power, he was its protector, and his destiny was just beginning.